Hello and welcome to another edition of Cracking the Cryptic. I'm Mark, and what I'm going to do today is play you my solve of today's Times Cryptic Crossword. And Simon's asked me to talk about the areas where I think I would have been going faster than most people, just to give people an idea of what I'm looking at, what I'm thinking, how I might be making up time on most of the field. There were some connection problems today, and I've cut some slowness out of the puzzle loading up, but here we are, it finally did. And it's just the normal things that we've been talking about. Looking for short synonyms, not spending too long on any one clue, and trying to find a foothold. So here's where I got going. 2 down. Dances taking you most of the way to heaven. And as you can see, I've filled in 2 steps there. I'll just pause the solve for a second. We're 26 seconds in, and I've got one answer, having read perhaps 3 clues, maybe 4. And that was quite an unusual way in. Most of the way, dances with 3-5, I was immediately thinking that both 1 steps and 2 steps would fit. There may be other dances that fit that pattern, but those ones came to mind, and that's a very helpful start. Now, what's the wordplay about, taking you most of the way to heaven? Well, I happen to know, luckily, Eddie Cochran's hit from, I would have thought, the early 60s, which was 3 Steps to Heaven. It's possible he was basing that on some other phrase, but I'm not aware of that if he was. You know, as long as it's just that hit, then I feel a bit lucky that I knew it, in which he described the 3 steps to heaven. So 2 steps must be most of the way there. Bit of a strange wordplay, bit of an odd reference, but quite helpful to get going. And as we've always said, once you start getting some letters in the grid, you can work off them a bit. So I move to the next the long answer that I've now connected with. Again, it's a phrase, and that kind of helps shape the thoughts, and it's 3-3-6. The first word ends in P, and there aren't all that many things. Now, as soon as I look at this clue, greeting quietly, well, greeting, short synonym, hi, H-I. That's a very normal thing. So how would that fit at the beginning of this? Well, hip. How could hip be the first word of a phrase that would fit that pattern? And the phrase hip hip hooray comes to mind. I'm not 100% sure it's in the dictionary, but certainly it's a phrase. And there at the end of the clue it says cheer. So I'm pretty confident this is hip hip hooray. I suppose it could be hurrah, but the wordplay in this, it's a very bitty clue made up of 6 different bits of wordplay. Helps to know the kind of crosswordese abbreviations. And here we've got hi for greeting, P for quietly, in is hip, as in something very cool and of the moment. House is HO, its abbreviation. Men is OR for other ranks, and always is AY, the I word that used to be able to mean always. So I think I've started writing that in without knowing exactly what all the bits were, but I will have checked as I went along that men always cheer. Oh, sorry, I was meant to restart it there. Here we go. So in goes hip hip hooray, and I can see the HOORAY bit, so I'm happy I've got the right variant there. 11 across, not easy at this stage, and in fact turns out to be a word I wouldn't have known was definitely a word. So I had a look at 9 across, and again I've paused the video just to have a look at this clue. Reddest is the first word, and that's quite a strange word. Now normally if I saw reddest I'd be thinking it was chosen for the use of its letters, but on this occasion I've got an O in the answer. I can't see any way in which I'm meant to be taking another couple of letters, including an O, to go with the letters of reddest. So I'm beginning to immediately think, well, maybe reddest is the definition. And how could that work? Well, it might be something to do with most left wing or most to do with blood. And the nothing fades in the clue made me think of O and then dies. And that worked very well in the synonym I came up with for reddest, which is bloodiest. And you can see there's a blot, a stain outside O dies in that. So it's a very neat clue, reddest stain in which nothing fades, and it gives bloodiest. And I still couldn't do one across, and I think because I was looking at this clue, classify large mammal, and thinking it's probably a double definition, like there's some word like whale that can mean classify, and I couldn't come up with it. I think I did, already I've got a decent start. I'm 1 minute in and I've got 3 longish answers into the top left that are probably going to help. But solving one down quite quickly was certainly very helpful, and it's not an easy clue. Mistake wearing jewel that's cheap. I see jewel that's cheap and I'm thinking bling, which goes into a lot of words and is often well used in crosswords. But it doesn't really seem to fit with the B and the H. In fact, not much fits with the B and the H. And I did think of a mistake being a bish or a bosh. And now that works a lot better. You can fit bish into that answer and get rubbishy. And that could mean cheap. And once I've worked out bish and rubbishy, I can see that the outside of the word is ruby, which is a jewel. So that can go in. Now I've got a letter for one across, and I'm quite good on animals. I do know this mammal, which is I think called a honey badger. If you don't know it, this is a very hard clue. You're going to have to kind of guess it based on the wordplay, which turns out to be a 4-letter word for classify and L for large. And the answer there is ratel. Now that gives me a real big in to 3 down. A long answer begins L something D. It's got 2 hyphens in. As soon as I see that in the grid, it is beginning to look like ladies in waiting to me. And so the clue's first indication is for those attending Royal, so that's looking already very good for ladies in waiting. And as I read the clue, I see gala wine isn't one I'd fancy. It looks like there's a lot of relevant anagram fodder there. I don't think when I was actually solving at speed that I necessarily worked out exactly how the anagram worked, but I was confident that it was probably right as it was. And if it wasn't, if for some reason there was another ladies in something, that would be corrected when I started solving at the bottom of the grid. So I was pretty confident that that was right. Had I been solving this as a commuter on a train, I'd probably have worked out the anagram there and then, but trying to get a good time and go for speed, ladies in waiting seemed absolutely certain. Now back to 11 across. As I say, I didn't know this answer was a word. Interested by journalist with abnormally shaped feet. Now journalist is almost always ed, short for editor, or hack. Now the only place ed can go in this is at the end. And interested by, that can be given in a crossword answer by into. So that would make the answer in toed. And although I don't know that, certainly I'm prepared to believe that that can mean with abnormally shaped feet. If the toes are turned in, you might be said to be in toed. And as so often, there are, as I say, sometimes 3 ways to get to an answer. One is from the definition, one is from the wordplay, and one is from the letters in the grid. And 2 of those in this case are confirming in toed. I may not know it's a word, but I can certainly be confident that it must be, and in it goes. 4 down is a reverse hidden. That was fairly straightforward. And then I think I have a look at 5 down, and I can't see what we're looking for here, looking for what we broadcast late. So I move on, and what I should do next, paused again, is to have a look at a 9-letter word beginning. I've got the first letter, and that's always helpful. Because getting the first letter is always helpful, it would be great to get this word that goes all across the top and gives 4 more first letters. And the clue is saw lagers being put out in this. Well, their saw lagers looks like an odd collection of 9 letters, and I've got a G, it really looks to me like this could be an anagram of saw lagers. We got a comment the other day asking how do you get so good at anagrams? You know, how do you see them so quickly? I think in the puzzle in question, how geraniums was written in the clue, and I very quickly saw that could anagram to housewarming. Well, it's something that I guess I've got better at over the years. I do get very used to almost any time I see a word written in public, I'm sometimes playing with the letters in my head and fiddling them around and just seeing if an anagram will work out of them. And here, saw lagers. I think deconstructing, what I'm often doing is looking for a finish. If you can get ing out of the answer, like in that housewarming example, or est, then that's quite a possible finish. And here, none of those are really possible, or is, but not that attractive. But where is there, W-A-R-E, and that's quite an odd finish. But if you can see that the remaining letters are S-L-A-G-S, then it's quite possible for that to be glassware, and that fits the sense of the clue very nicely. Saw lagers being put out in this is actually an and lit, effectively. Both the definition and wordplay are done by the whole clue, which is very neat, very clever. But certainly this is one of those anagrams where the answer came to me very quickly and I was able to fill it in. So we'll start it up again. In goes glassware. Now that helps with 5 down. Broadcast late does make one think of after hours, and that was the answer. I couldn't see 6 down, not entirely clear possibly, was the apparent definition, although I was vaguely thinking about transparent and translucent at the time. And I couldn't see 7 down and 8 down, so much for getting these first letters that I was prizing so much. The only other letter I've got in the top half of the grid is in 12 across, and I couldn't get that either, so it didn't turn into all that much of a success. But now I move to the rest of the grid, and I'm hoping to build on what I've got there and then come round back up to the top right of the grid. 13 down, roughly chopping stick in preparation for working with trap. That's quite hard because it's hard to see what the definition is, which end of the clue it is, and the chopping bit, which seems to be very suggestive somehow, turns out not to be a very short synonym. It is a synonym, but it's not just an abbreviation. You're not using chopping to mean truncated. I couldn't see that immediately. 17 across, I think I move on to the next long answer here. Revolting group of children under guard after week occupying a playground. And the real puzzle here is to think of a word that fits the first word of 17 across. I'm very confident about ladies in waiting and after hours, but what will fit there? Is it going to be ending in S? I wasn't sure. And I really had to think quite hard. I think this takes quite a few seconds. I mean, probably still quite quick, obviously, by most people's standards. But eventually I did think of an annoying group of children, a word for that, awkward squad. And that's got the quad, the playground on it. Ward is the guard, WK is the week. So it's quite possible. And 13 down, I had previously thought of the possibility that the trap in 13 down was referring to a mouth. So although I hadn't seen at that time that preparation for working with trap was cunningly cluing something that you can work with your mouth, I did at this point spot that chopping could be hewing with an H something W in the answer, and at that point I could see that chewing gum would fit the enumeration 7-3, so that was able to go. Now 20 across, it's another and lit anagram, very neatly done, but with a couple of letters in the grid I found this quite straightforward. You're playing with the letters of IE to bend, and that comes out as obedient, which is disposed, i.e. to bend, as well, means it, as well as being given by that wordplay. Another very clever clue. Naomi is fairly familiar to me as I moan backwards. I'm sorry to anybody called Naomi, but that's what it is. 18 down, cognac is a spirit. Fairly neat wordplay with cog and can reversed. 19 down looked like cancel would be the definition. Gun permit on tip from police is the rest of the clue. And a permit or permit, I was thinking about the possibility of okay. Tip from police could to me mean either end of police, so a P or an E. And I did think of revoke, which would fit this pattern. I couldn't really see why rev, which I normally think of in crosswords as a clergyman, should be a gun at first. But I think even after I'd filled it in, I suddenly realised that to rev a car or to rev an engine is to gun it, which is slightly modern slang, but a very neat disguise. The priest at 25 across is a clergyman, and the strategy at 22 down is a plan. 24 across, the clue begins top quality. So I'm thinking about gold standard straight away, gold medal, something like that. Speaker's self-reproach was slow to shift. Well, that doesn't fit with anything I can think of to do with gold, but I still went ahead and put in gold because it seemed so likely from G blank L blank and top quality. So I have to come back to that and in fact correct it later. 15 down, to work hard, the definition, so that's bust a gut. Happen to use US and tag in but. And 16 down, rider is the definition and addendum is the answer, which again to many people probably wouldn't be easy. I think this is really where I'm gaining time here. As soon as I see a word, an answer that fits the apparent definition in the clue, then I just need a little bit of a hint that that's what's going on in the wordplay, and I'm done. And I'm certainly prepared to acknowledge that my brain is very quick to find words that fit patterns and mean roughly what they have to. I think I am working on roughly quite a lot of the time, because you can't always expect a crossword clue to be a perfect and exact definition, or the definition that you'd use if you were explaining something to someone. So 21 across, put out toy, that has to be a double definition. And one of the classic toys for a baby at least is a rattle, and that can mean to put someone out if you rattle them. 26 across is totem, which is exchanging those tips again on motet. And now I'd thought already of transparent in 6 down, and that fits with the end of the word given the letters I've got. So I had to do a little bit of counting in my head about how many letters I have left, rule out sub-transparent, and work out that it had to be semi-transparent. And the father is a parent in that. A mitre is the joint, yeah, that's right, and shorts is the rest. Still quite difficult in this top right corner that I found difficult earlier, but I eventually hit on what 12 across was getting at. Or rather, I hit on which part was the definition. Could be cross or it could be note. And when I thought about note eventually, the most straightforward type of a note in a way is a musical note. And certainly I would work up through a quaver to a crotchet, and that would fit. And of course cross can be crotchety. If you don't take that quite to the end, you've got crotchet, which is a note. So that goes in. That confirms that 7 down isn't a blaze, which I thought might be a definition of like a house on fire, but instead is alight, which also means that. Don't get on is a fairly clever definition as well. If you alight from a train or a bus, you're not getting on, you're getting off. So that's quite a neat double definition as well. Still couldn't quite see this body here at 8 down. I was wondering whether it might be estate, which is often to do with a body in some way, or an entity or something else. Doorway looked like entry, but that doesn't fit anymore. So I went back to 10 across, where the definition here was getting sweaty or sweaty, and Man pulling back is the Isle of Man reversed. Stone is ST, as in pounds and stones. And moist means sweaty. So the body now, state would still fit, but so would entity. And what the clue's doing is saying that it replaces the R for right in entry. And therefore you get entity. So I was finished in 5 minutes 27 seconds. I think that was something like that. I've actually cut out a lot because the website took a long time to record that, but at least it did stop me. 5:28. I was certainly happy with that as a fast time. And here's the leaderboard from today's Times subscribers who've solved the puzzle. Now you can discount almost all of these names because there is a history with the Times puzzle of people just typing in the answers that they've already either solved on paper or been given on a website somewhere. The Times solvers call them neutrinos because they're too fast to be true. And that is the case for almost all of them. However, my time of 5:28, which I was quite pleased with for what wasn't a straightforward puzzle, was well beaten by number 5 here, MOHN. That's John McCabe, I think, who finished second this year in the Times Crossword Championship, and is a really fast solver. He's been getting faster and faster over the years. Look at that time for this puzzle, 4 minutes 13 seconds. I'd certainly believe that that can be trusted, and it's a fabulous time. Well done to him. My time 5:28. I'm certain, as I say, pretty happy with that. I think this was the standard of a puzzle that could be in a final, so 5.5 minutes is pretty quick. Now as we pan down the rest of the leaderboard, here are some other names that are worth noting. Verlaine, Matthew Marcus, he's a very fast solver, 7 minutes and 9 seconds for that. Pretty good effort. And Jason, who is the person that I mostly think of as my rival for speed. Jason James is a phenomenally quick solver as well. 7 minutes and 13 seconds. So they're both a minute and a half behind me, but further even behind. Jason's 3 minutes behind John McCabe. That's amazing by John. And Jason's good, and I know Simon was impressed by his time. As we pan down the rest of the leaderboard, we see some other very genuine names. Andy Fisher at 16, Tom Stubbs, Topical Tim's a genuine solver, Midas, I think they're all genuine now. These are real times. Andy Owl, he's been getting very good. And look at Simon Anthony, there he is in 28th at 13:49. Still not a bad time. And like any of these solvers who are coming in 15 minutes or less, 20 minutes or less, that's pretty quick for this puzzle. And it's interesting to see how many people are solving the puzzle, because I think the top 100 solvers takes us only down to 30 minutes. Well done if you're on that website. And I'm solving in the mid-afternoon here, so there's been some time for people to solve, but not an enormous amount of time. There will be some more solvers coming into the top 100 later in the day, such that it'll probably take about 25 minutes or better to be in the top 100. And I think we should only discount about 1 or 2 dozen of those near the top as not genuine times. The others are all very real times. And what makes me quicker than most of them? Certainly nothing makes me quicker than John McCabe today, as you can see. But overall, I think it is just the ability to spot what the answer could be and then make it work. That's where I think there is some time saving. It'll be interesting to see. I think Simon might consider doing a video on where he thinks I've made up time, and put that up tomorrow. We'll see if he does, and we'll see what he says if he does. Thanks very much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon on Cracking the Cryptic. As always, it's been